Record to the cloud. All right, let me get back to that. Okay, so welcome everybody. We are today doing a recap of session 1 and 2 of our Agent's Guide to Google. So we're doing Google setup and Google reviews. I'm just going to come up out front and say I'm going to talk very fast. So the perk of it being recorded is it will be on YouTube. You can watch at 3/4 speed. You can watch me in real time. You can speed me up if you want. You can skip around. You know, if you're like, okay, I've already got the setup, you can skip past that. But I do want to go through each piece of it because we have a part 3 coming up, which is Google Ads. And you definitely want to make sure you've gone through step 1 and step 2. So this is going to be comprehensive. I'm going to go a little bit fast, but again, just sit here and digest and then find time where you can come back to sessions 1 and 2 and make sure you do the things before you start running ads. You need a fairly well put together profile before you start running ads, including Google reviews. You want at least a handful of reviews before you start running ads because some of the ads are based on your Google profile. So who am I? It's me, Kimmy McBurney, Allied Home Inspections. Before we get started, I do want to introduce our team because at the end of the day, I love teaching about Google, but I do make my living doing home inspections. So this is us. We do now have 6 licensed home inspectors with another septic technician. And then we have 3 full-time admin, which is awesome to support us in all of our services. The newest things, we do radon mitigation now, which is very exciting. And then we also do septic pumping. So we are truly a one-stop shop. We even have 2 inspectors certified to do pest. So we genuinely do everything in-house. So for you guys, that means we're not bopping around. We're not calling a million people. We are efficient and respectful of your time. So I would love to partner with you for inspections. And last year, again, we were lucky to win the Best of WNC 2025. So very honored to do that. So, all right, so session 1 recap, we're going to talk about setting up your Google profile, naming, optimizing, filling in all the fields, verifying, and the basics of post. So I promised somebody I'd share this video again. I hope it works. Let me see. Let me pause it. Bear with me, but it's a very enjoyable video that I want to share. 1 second. All right, I got to pause her because now I got to go to the sharing capabilities. Share. Entire screen. Can you guys see the Instagram screen? If someone could unmute and let me know because I can't see you guys.
Yes.
All right. Let me know if Alina, let me know if you can hear it when I start playing. Oh. Oh no,
Okay.
I can't hear it. We can't hear it. Hold on, I gotta undo the sound. Hold on, how do we start her over? Okay, so she was like, this is my business, this is me. Here's me opening my mailbox. Right, so hopefully you guys can see that, but just a little parody of if you have not gotten to that point. So I know some people on here were saying they're waiting to get verified. So if you need to do your verification video, it is just as cheesy as that. You know, here's my business, here's where I am. If any of you are stuck, if you are in Google jail, so if you haven't gotten verified or if they've kicked it back to you for any reason, please reach out to me. You can email me, Kimmy, Kimi, at alliedinspector.com. Love to help you troubleshoot. I've gotten so many people out of Google jail. So know that you're not alone and happy to help. But that's a little tip on if you got to do your video. So really quickly, again, Google Business Matters. I heard somebody say something like, Google is your biggest and best customer. If Google does not understand what you do, nobody will understand, right? Because Google is the ultimate internet client. If Google can't find you and understand what you do, people searching for you cannot find you. You know, all the time people find us, even if they know us, they're like, oh yeah, Kimmy with Allied. but they don't remember my phone number. They don't remember our URL. They're going to Google us. So making sure your online presence is really strong. Another really cool thing about Google is Instagram and Facebook. Yes, they want you to be found, but they also want you to pay for it. And their algorithm can engineer that. Whereas Google, they have a little bit more of an ability to get organic search results. Yes, they do have paid ads, but at the same time, there's a lot more you can do to boost yourself organically on Google to earn business without paying for ads. So again, Google matters, right? It's instant credibility. It makes it easier to call you directly. You can dominate a local market. You're not tied to the relying on people having social media accounts, etc. So, like I always bring up the example, if you're going to go to a restaurant, what's the first thing you do? You go on Yelp, you go on Google, right? You want to make sure this business is semi-legitimate. They've got a few photos, they've got some reviews, right? I think the statistic is over 90% of your clients are going to verify you online somehow, right? So they want a website, they want a Google business profile, etc. And in my experience, I recommend Google above all else for realtors because, anything could be gone at the drop of a hat. We don't necessarily we're not always able to have all of our clients experience us on a Zillow or Realtor.com. So all those sites kind of get diluted, but really Google is great to have a central location. You own that profile. You're not dependent on others. And a lot of those review sites will let you pull Google reviews into them, but not vice versa. So again, that's my ultimate recommendations for realtors is to have a strong Google business profile and make sure you're gathering reviews there. So, and again, free marketing, you're right. I feel like we all know that. High visibility, you're going to get more calls and contact. So again, gonna go a little bit fast through this, but feel free to pause, come back to it, take notes. So again, 101, setting up your Google business profile. If you don't have that yet, I literally go to Google and I get Google business profile. It'll take you to the URL. You're going to go click start now. You're going to put your business name. For real estate agents, the ultimate recommendation from all of my research is name and location and the word realtor. So actually your name and realtor need to be put together. So realtor, Kimmy McBurney, Asheville, or, Kimmy McBurney, realtor, comma, Asheville. So that would be what I would recommend, right? So keep it sweet and simple, but having your area. And honestly, anyone serving Western North Carolina, I recommend Asheville because as you guys all know, that's kind of our hub. That's where people start searching. So I would definitely put that there in your name. Choosing the right category, that's also very easy. Real estate agent, 100%. Agency, if you have a team or a firm license. And there's also tons of subcategories. So make sure if there's a subcategory that applies to you to utilize it. I think there's one for commercial. There's hundreds. So make sure you go through it because one of my biggest tips for when you're setting up your Google is make sure you utilize every field you can. So if it gives you an opportunity to provide information, provide it, right? So if there's multiple categories and you have something that applies to you, like real estate consultant, you're like, that's redundant. Doesn't matter. You want as many opportunities to earn and match with potential searchers as possible. So adding your location. So this is, I've mentioned before, if you're in Google jail, a lot of it's the address. So most realtors, I actually do not recommend to use your brokerage address because if you are Keller Williams or EXP or Nest Realty, you share that office with 20, 30, 400 other agents. So it doesn't do you a lot of justice to have that. Most of us are not attracting foot traffic. You can always tell your client to meet you there, but they don't need to necessarily have that on Google. Also, then you're also competing with 400 other agents, right? That little Google Maps icon is going to show a bunch of agents at the same address. So I actually recommend using your home address and hiding it. For example, our home inspection business does not have a primary office. So we have a registered address. It's hidden so that people can see our general area. We still show up in searches, but we don't necessarily have like a pin on the map, and that's okay because no one's finding us through our street address. And then we can tell Google our service areas. Again, then they're going to present those results to clients. So for us, I think you're allowed up to like 30. We have a pretty big service range. So first and foremost, I did the counties because it's very broad and overreaching, right? At minimum, I wanted the counties covered. Then I went with some of the bigger cities in each county, and then you can kind of niche down from there. I would definitely put your hometown. I live in Horseshoe. I'm going to put Horseshoe on there. I want all the Horseshoe home inspections because who doesn't like a short commute, right? So making sure you use every possible. So if it allows you 30, you give them 30 areas that you serve. So making sure it's on there, but making sure it's accurate. You don't want to just put North Carolina because you probably don't serve the entire state. I mean, I guess you take referral business, but you know what I mean. So setting your service areas, we talked about. Adding your contact information. 100%, please make sure you have your contact info. What I recommend is this is consistent across all social or all platforms, right? So making sure it's the same on different, on your website and all that stuff. Because again, Google, the more times it appears in internet data, the more verifiable you are. Another thing it allows you to do is like I think you can set a button that's like, oh, contact me or schedule now. That I don't think you can set up to a phone number. I mean, obviously you have your phone number on there, but you can link a Calendly. So even if you don't have, there's a free version of Calendly. You can't sync it with your calendar, but you can just make a generic schedule. Like, okay, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 to 4, I'm accepting appointments. If you can't make that appointment, obviously you would just contact that person and say, I'm sorry. But the more instant gratification they have and instant feedback, right? That's why that Zillow button says, book a showing now, whatever it says. It's like, hey, do this now. They don't want someone to call them back. They don't want someone to text them back. They want to know, I've got an appointment with Kimmy McBurney on Monday at 2 o'clock, and I'm so excited, right? So again, the point is filling in all of the fields that are available to you. So then once you're done setting it up, you want to verify. So making sure they used to do a postcard. Sometimes you get really lucky and the Google gods just shine upon you and verify you. Or most people have to go through a video process. Very easy. I just showed you one a couple of minutes ago. It was a little bit of a satire, but really funny. But again, if I think it's 60 seconds they give you, use all the 60 seconds. If it's your home, you want to show them the mailbox. You want to show them your the street number on your home. Use the key. Go inside the house. Go walk over to your desk. Show them your computer. Show them your business card. So they kind of need the full experience. And it sounds really cheesy, but do all the things. And then again, if you get stuck in Google jail, please call me or text me or email me. I'm happy to help you work through that. I don't think there's been anyone yet that we haven't been able to get out of Google jail. So, and then always optimizing. So going to your business description, making sure that's all filled out. Use as many characters as you can, get all the keywords in there of your business and who you serve, your local market, stuff like that. And then upload your photos. So we'll kind of talk about this when we talk about posts, but photos of your business. So you'll have like profile photos, for lack of a better term, that represent your business that you get to select. You also get to tell them which one you want as your cover photo. So, your main photo. So another piece of advice is making sure you have that same main photo across all platforms. So most of you are going to have it be a headshot. So making sure that your Facebook profile photo for your business is your headshot and that your Instagram, cover photo, bio photo is the same shot because you want Google to recognize you across all platforms so that it can draw all those things into a search result. Okay, sorry, I was checking the chat. Got to go back. Okay. So making sure you have a handful of photos. So for you guys, like I said, it's going to be your profile picture, or sorry, a headshot, and then maybe some branding photos, some action photos. The more authentic, the better. Don't use too many professional photos because again, if they are elsewhere, that's fine, but Google's going to give you more credit for unique content because Google does not make its own content. It relies on us 100%. So the more unique content that you give Google, the more credibility and benefit it's going to have to you, the more priority it's going to give to your content because it's unique to Google. And then turning on messaging and calls. So, like I said, making sure you have the business information where they can call you, or if you look in the very middle of the screen, I know it's small, but it says bookings. So, again, making sure you have that booking link on there so that people know how to book with you. So, again, to summarize, it's just the setup part, choosing the right categories, using photos strategically, right for Google and humans. I really recommend staying away from AI. What I do is I'll go in ChatGPT and have it write something for me. I will not copy and paste. I'll put them kind of side by side and then I'll rewrite what it says. But if you need ChatGPT to kind of just like give you some ideas, great, but then make sure you put it in your own words because Google and search engines are becoming really smart to AI and actually are, de-ranking AI content. So, and then we're going to talk about posts. Posts, I don't think a lot of people even realize you can post in Google just like you post on social media. It is just as important to give some attention to Google and put posts there. And that's one of the biggest tips about giving your profile a boost. Later on, I'll share some content from another realtor that I know. She's in the Atlanta area, Gainesville, Georgia, but she's kind of my case study. She's done a lot of business on Google and she does not pay for ads, but she's got some strategic, organic ways that she utilizes Google. So we'll go through that. And a big part of that are posts. So we're on to session 2 already. Like, what did it take us? Only like 20 minutes to go through session 1. So we're going to go pretty fast. So this is where we're getting into the kind of the meat and potatoes of this organic strategy, right? So the first session was just Google 101. Like you got to set up the profile and you got to do it right. So the second part of it is Google reviews. So this is where I've really become self-taught of developing our own profile. So, years ago, I knew it was important. And most likely you've probably done the same journey. You went on Google and maybe you found a company that you're like, oh, like I'll just hire somebody to run my Google page. It's so expensive. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. It's not in the budget. I'm going to do it myself. So I was actually also online and there was another home inspector who was advertising that they were like the highest rated home inspector on Google in the area. And I was like, that's cool. How do you do that? So basically it's just self-nominated, but it's, having the most Google reviews and the highest rating combined. And we were only like 100 reviews behind them. So challenge accepted. Now we outrank, every home inspection company in the area. So, but my point being, be intentional, right? I just set that goal for myself and figured out how to do that. I've done lots of research, not only on home inspections, but just general business pages, and then a lot of real estate based research. So, but then also for you guys, I don't want you to get too bogged down. Like you don't have to be number one. A lot of you are up against teams that have 700 Google reviews. Know that there is still an opportunity for you. This Atlanta realtor that I was talking about. So Atlanta, you can only imagine how many people have hundreds of reviews. I think she only has like 29 and she's been in business for quite some time. So recency and quality of reviews can outrank volume. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to have the most. No, you just have to be consistent and you have to be regularly gathering reviews. So it's anybody's game. Again, why do they matter? It's a modern word of mouth. It's social proof, right? It's like a litmus test. Do they read them all word for word? No, but their brain's going to do that quick speed read and make sure you're legitimate and somebody out there somewhere said they worked with you. You're right. You're creating that credibility and first impression. So the more reviews you have, the more opportunity. So numbers don't lie. Here's a couple of statistics. Again, that one at the bottom that I was talking about earlier, over 90% of their consumers are basing their decisions on search results, on that verification process, right? They want to go online and make sure you're a human being and that you worked with other people. And trust is currency, right? Especially in real estate transactions. It's one, you guys know, it's one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make, highly emotional, etc. So Google reviews, like I said, Google reviews and posts are kind of the two things, aside from an optimized profile, that I'm actively working on to boost our profile. So I'm going to share some screenshots of how exactly I do it. But here's that first point, is to manage it on your Google Maps app. The reason I mention it, it has pretty much the same capability as the desktop, which is awesome. And it has all the functionality from your phone. And I'll talk about why that's actually a bigger benefit than doing it from your computer. So again, social proof in action. People trust strangers, right? People are like, your mom's like, oh, don't talk to strangers on the internet. Don't get in the car with people you don't know. What do we do now? We summon strangers from the internet to get in their car. So it's a wild time, but we've got to meet people where they're at, which is online. So for you guys, so for reviews, timing is key. Ask at the high point. What's the most exciting day for real estate professionals in real estate? Closing day. Yay. Payday. Right. So making sure you're asking while it's fresh, 24 to 48 hours. Coincidentally, closing day is also usually moving day and all these other things. But you guys know your clients best. Follow up, build it in your closing process. Ask often, mention it often, right? When you guys have that service provider who comes to your home and they mention it before they leave, or hey, they're going to ask you for a Google review, like, please, that would really help me out. Or if you build it into your process, they're going to see how valuable those reviews are to you, not only you, but also how valuable they were to them in their decision-making process. So the more you bring it up, the more you're introducing them to the concept, and the more likely they are to give you a review. So making sure you're timely, and that you ask often. And I would manually follow up. Most real estate agents, your volume, you may have a couple closings a month. Most of us are like, that would be lovely. So it's not super high volume, right? You don't have thousands per month or hundreds per month. So just making a manual process that you're following up. So here's some of my strategies to do that. Sending personalized text message is like 100% my top strategy. So making sure you are sending your specific Google link. So I'm going to go toggle over to Google really quick. And so I want to go find our Google online home inspection. Here we are. So this little share icon right here is what you're going to click on. And when my computer loads, it's thinking really slow. So this really unattractive Google link down here is what you need to be sharing. So you should be able to, or you can access that from your phone as well. So making sure anytime you ask for a Google review, do not ever ask without sending them that link. So when people see me in person and they're like, Kimmy, can you give me a Google review? I said, you text me right now with your Google review link and 100% will review you back. Do not expect people to navigate to Google on their own. They're not going to do it. They're going to forget, or very, very rarely will somebody take the initiative to go find you. So 1000% personalized text messages, right? And really personalize them. So, if you just had the closing today and they locked themselves out on day one or something funny, right? Like, hey, so sorry, we had that little boo-boo the other day and you locked yourself out or something. Here's my, I'd love a Google review link. It was such a pleasure to work with you. Again, making it personalized, because then if it comes off as like a copy and paste text, people are just so desensitized and they're going to move on. So the second thing to do, including a QR code on your business cards, your email signature, marketing materials, really important, because they may say, oh, I lost that text, but oh, she had that QR code everywhere. So I'll go find the QR code. And I'll teach you later in the slide how to make a QR code if you're not sure. And then, like I said, incorporating your review requests into existing communication. So for us, for example, hopefully this doesn't go too slow. If you navigate to our website, you can do fun things like have little widgets like this, where it's automatically going to pull all of our reviews from Google and showcase them. That's really fun. Or you can always copy and paste them or extract them and put them in your social media. Or, like I said, a lot of people, agents have them in their buyers' presentations, their listing presentations, because again, it's that social proof. So you're not just sitting there saying how great you are and communicating like, oh, my clients love me. Like you're just showing them, right? You're showing them the proof in the pudding without having to say it. So again, this is what it looks like in the Google Maps app. That's what it would look like on your phone. You have the little share icon. That's really easy. And then so on the far left, you see what that looks like when you copy and paste that into a text. So again, making sure you are kind of, putting it on a silver platter for people is really the best way to go about it. So again, the do's and don'ts, make it easy. The less steps, the better. Again, sharing that native, unsexy Google link is my biggest recommendation. Being authentic, the more you can personalize those texts, the better. Because again, if anything, you guys know, especially you guys as realtors, you get so many, the spam texts or mass texts. So the more you can be authentic, the better. Don't bribe people. I've tried, and I'm just kidding. I didn't try, but I looked into it and I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll give an incentive, right? But no, Google frowns upon that. So making just be authentic. Most people do want to help you out and not sending generic requests, like I said. And I'll share some more tips and tricks of how I've gone above and beyond just the usual text to gain reviews. So this is kind of shrouded in a lot of words, but I really want to focus on this slide, how to maximize your ask. So again, I talked about realtors, you may only have one closing that month or two closings or three closings. So a lot of agents will say, oh, well, I only had three closings, or last year was my first year. I only had 9 deals. That's only 9 reviews. No, there's so many ways to expand your review sources. If 6 professionals were involved in the deal, that's 6 opportunities. So if you had 3 closings and you had 3 opportunities, that's really 18 opportunities you had to ask somebody. So I put a little list here at the bottom for you guys of some asks per transaction. So clients, multiple parties, right? If it's a husband and wife and they're both fairly tech savvy, let's ask both of them. You have a lender, your lender's admin, usually, especially at the mortgage brokerages we deal with, it's not just one person. You have interaction with multiple people. Ask all of them. Your insurance agent, your transaction coordinator, your inspector. We actually automatically give Google reviews to both buying and selling agents of every transaction we do. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Your appraiser, why not? If you had interactions with them, the seller's agent, a seller's admin, closing attorneys, paralegals, contractors, you name it. If somebody came in contact with that transaction, right? Go through your professional services disclosure. Who were you guys using on that transaction, and ask them for a Google review. My biggest tip though, too, on especially all these professional service providers, review them first. Give reviews to get reviews. So like I said, with our home inspections, I manually remind myself with every transaction. My CRM automatically reminds me, and it's like, okay, we just published the report for 123 Main Street. Here's the buyer's agent. Here's the seller's agent. I'm going to go find them online and automatically give them a review and compliment their service. Because again, you guys know, if somebody gives you something, you're more likely to return the favor. And who doesn't love a good Google review, right? Even if your interaction is limited, you guys know, as a home inspector, most often we're representing the buyer client. So the seller is not my client per se, but I did have interaction with the seller's agent, right? We most likely communicated in regards to access. They approved the showing time request. I can also compliment their listing. They were highly communicative, and you could tell they cared about their client, and they were very responsive, and they ensured we had the access we need, etc. So again, anytime you can kind of provide knowledge like that, again, then they're going to want to review you in return. So just showing you how many, right? So I said originally 6 professionals, but right there I list probably at least 10 or 12 per transaction. And then one last thing too, don't forget the deals that didn't close. Did you run a CMA for your neighbor? Did you host an open house for another agent? Did you host desk duty? Did you help place a renter? Did you show somebody 15 properties before they unfortunately decided, they had to wait longer to apply for a mortgage? Those are all great testimonies to your service. So again, same question, that renter that you placed, you were probably dealing with a mortgage agent, maybe multiple, to try and get them pre-qualified. So again, go to all of those professionals and get referrals. Also, a lot of people also will include testimonials, like essentially character references from family. That's great too. That's definitely probably the lowest on my priority list. But if they're sprinkled in there, I think that's fantastic. But again, anytime you can make sure it's professionally based, there's so many opportunities in real estate to get those different types of reviews. So refer back to this, almost have a checklist, right? Every single client, every single contact that you deal with, go back and make sure you're touching all of these different parties. And again, making sure you're sending your actual custom link and reviewing them first if you can, and your clients as well. If you have experienced your client's business in any way, shape, or form, definitely leave them a review. I think that's an awesome way to just have a good relationship with your client. So I will be honest, as a business that we now automate, I do have in my CRM a Google review email. I'll be honest, I think it probably gets the least traction out of any of my methods. And then, so that's the first thing that goes out. So if you guys do use a CRM, don't be afraid to at least have a generic request. I don't think there's any harm in that, but I'm going to be honest, it's not going to be your most successful tactic. Then I said my CRM messages me. So my CRM does not automatically text the client asking for a review. It texts me, reminding me to manually ask them. So you guys can probably set up those triggers in your CRM as well. So have your CRM remind you to go give or get reviews. And then lastly, my last line of defense is I do use this website called Blip Reviews. They do advertise to work with real estate agents, but this may not make a lot of sense for most of you. On average, last year we did 860 home inspections. So again, I mentioned that I give 3 requests per inspection. So you can imagine that's a lot of requests. So I do pay for a system that integrates with my software. So it's kind of a fail safe. Also, for some reason, people are very responsive to these things. I'll text somebody 5 times and they don't respond. And then I send them, I put them in this automated queue. And for some reason, that's the magic sauce for them. So it integrates with Google. Someone pointed out in the graphic on the screen, it has Google and Facebook and Yelp. I recommend just Google. You can hook it up to those things, but in my experience in the past, the more you put on, the more people get overwhelmed, the more diluted it gets. Somebody may only review you on Yelp and you're like, well, that's cool, but that's not, I'm really focusing on Google. So I would recommend only syncing it to your Google, only using your Google reviews. Sorry, I'm just checking my text. Okay. So if you do want to automate, this is one I use. I think it's like $79 a month for the base, and then you pay if you go over a certain amount. So for example, in my volume of business, I think I'm paying 100 to 150, just depending on how many inspections we do that month. Again, for us, it was worth it in our business, but for you guys, doing it manually is a-okay, right? Use your existing CRM to trigger notifications to yourself to follow up with this process. Automate as much as you can. So now we've got some reviews. Cool. So we need to respond to every single review. This is why I love the Google Maps app. You can allow push notifications. So it's going to notify you the second a review comes in. The Google professionals that I've consulted with say respond to Google reviews within 48 hours or less. Really, I want to try and be pretty much instantaneous with my review responses. But again, making sure it's 48 hours or less. So if it comes in, at 7 p.m. to the next day when you get to your desk is perfectly fine. Making sure we respond with keyword rich responses. So, for example, I love a good 5-star review, but when they say nothing, it's slightly painful. How many times can I say, thank you so much for the 5-star review? So I do use ChatGPT a lot for this, just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. So I'll say, hey, help me respond to a 5-star review. The other thing I'll do is I'll look up the client, right? So it's like, oh, Kimmy McBurney left you a 5-star review. Cool. She's awesome. I go into our software and I figure out what she did with us. So Kimmy had her home inspected in Horseshoe. She was buying a home and she got a pest inspection and a well inspection and a septic pump. Okay. So I'm going to go back and say, Kimmy, thank you so much for the 5-star review. It's the ultimate compliment. I'm so glad you had such a positive experience. We're so happy that we could help you out with your home inspection in Horseshoe. And I was also so glad that we were able to bundle your pest inspection, your well inspection, and your septic pump. Again, I'm not using personal information, right? I'm not going to give their address, but I'll respond with their name and the city and the services they got. That way, anytime you're putting those keywords into Google, again, you're just bolstering your chance of showing up. If somebody Googles home inspection in Horseshoe, North Carolina, I'm giving myself one more chance to be showing up there. So repurposing your reviews and making sure you respond to everyone, keyword rich responses, and then also, heaven forbid, negative reviews. I actually saw an agent post about this the other day. Someone had told them that basically, if someone doesn't have a negative review, they don't believe them. So, funny or not, people are actually wanting negative reviews to kind of validate you as a business. So, unfortunately, we do have some negative reviews as a business, but really, to me, there's an opportunity. One, no. Did you know that you can get people to change their reviews? Google reviews are not set in stone. They can be updated and or changed anytime. Many, many times I have gotten reviews changed because maybe there was a mistake or they didn't understand something or they gave me the opportunity to fix it. So I always respond to negative reviews as lengthily as possible. Most times there's an explanation. And then I always say, here's my phone number, here's my email, here's my website. Please reach out and let me know how I can make this right for you, because that tells that client, if they do stumble upon that negative review, oh my gosh, like they were so accommodating and so willing to change and willing to make that right. So that's a great way to respond to negative reviews. And then also know that you can dispute reviews. So again, I made the example that we mostly represent buyers. Unfortunately, a deal did not go through because of things that were uncovered in the inspection, and the buyers terminated. The sellers came after us, and the sellers said, I forget what it was, but how dare they? They killed our deal. Now I can't sell my house. I'm sorry your retaining wall was falling down. It wasn't my problem. But that they were not our client. So we responded to Google and said, like, this is not a patron of our business. They actually have no legitimate experience with our business, and Google removed the review. So if somebody is not your actual client or did not actually go to your restaurant, or they did not actually use your services, they cannot leave you negative Google reviews. So know that you can dispute them. Always respond to reviews. They can be changed, and then always making sure they're keyword rich. Same with changing. The only bad thing about that is people can only review you once. So for example, I work with a lot of real estate agents. We have multiple transactions together. Unfortunately, Google will only let you review them once. So sometimes you can get creative and ask them if they have a separate profile. I personally shamefully have like 10 Google profiles just because I have multiple businesses. So sometimes I'll try and review them from another profile if it's another transaction or another experience to review them for. And then again, also, you have to have a Google profile to review somebody. So yes, inevitably, you're going to have a client that refuses. They do not have a Google profile. They won't get one. So unfortunately, there is really no roundabout way to get one from them. Sometimes I ask if there's somebody else that could communicate the review on their behalf, maybe a spouse or a child or a grandchild or something may be able to leave the review on their behalf. If not, at minimum, I ask them to put their review in an email, and I can put that in like a testimonial page But unfortunately, yes, randomly you're going to run into someone who can't review you. So, long-term strategy. You have now sat through almost an hour of me rambling about Google. I'm so proud of you. Mark some time on your calendar. If you're multitasking right now, that's great. But I want you guys to be doing weekly posts, which I'll get to the posts in a second, but making sure you're getting reviews consistently. Again, consistency matters over quantity and over quality, right? Like if somebody goes on your business profile and your last review was 8 months ago, not great. But if you've only got 29 and two were in the last 30 days, well, hey, you're rocking and rolling. You're still in business. You're doing things. So making sure you're doing 5 reviews a month at least, making sure it's part of your marketing, sharing it and repurposing it in social media, listing presentations, etc. And so again, this whole amalgamation of things is what helps you make your mark on Google. So again, making sure you have your Google review link, asking for requests, committing to 5 a month. So here's my good friend, Jessica Wade, who's my case study. Because again, I don't want to just say these things. I want to make sure they work. She does about 50 transactions a year. She said in the last year, she did about 10 from Google and none of that was paid ads. So what is she doing? She has a complete profile. She's gathering consistent reviews. She doesn't have a lot of reviews, but they're consistent. She's posting regularly. And then lastly, she's reviewing other businesses. I'll come back to posting because you're like, hold on, you skipped past that. Reviewing other businesses. Again, you guys, it's really important that you have some credibility with Google and that you're contributing. So reviewing other businesses, Jessica, her pride and joy is she reviewed Waffle House. That review has over 50,000 views. So 50,000 people have now seen her name and she always finds a way, like she's got her real estate agent in there, right? So it's just subliminal messaging. This is how people find her, right? They're Googling her and she's kind of everywhere. She also said her review was on the Cookout website because Cookout does what we do and repurposes reviews. So again, reviewing businesses, or she was sitting down at a bar with a client, just, having a client meeting. They had some drinks. She reviewed the business right then and there. The bar owner came out and shook her hand and said, thank you so much. Your review just came in. She shared her card. So a really great way to network with business owners and get your name out there. And by doing what you're doing, anywhere you're going, anywhere you're eating, anywhere you are a patron of their business, consistently giving reviews. So posts. So if you go in the Google business profile, I'm going to toggle back to ours really quick if my internet allows. Allied home inspection. So if you look here, so the photo you see up top, that's what I chose as our profile photo. But if you go to posts, these are our posts. And if you look at those timestamps, I practiced what I preached 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, then we're getting back in it. But every single day we're posting. And again, I'm posting generic things. I just say the city, like, oh, we completed a residential with a septic in Candler. So again, just sharing the services and the city. So for you guys, again, I'll show some examples of ones that Jessica posts, but this is just fueling Google's fire, right? This is an opportunity for me to insert myself in search results organically. And this is a huge tenet of Jessica's strategy on Google and ours as well. So making sure you're posting on Google. For you guys at minimum, I would like to see 1 to 2 a week. They can be on the same day if you have to, but if you spread them out, the better. But 1 to 2 a week. And the reason I love the Google Maps app is you want to use unique photos, meaning do not repurpose your professional listing photos because Google's going to see that photo and say, yeah, I already have that photo. It's on Zillow. It's on 3,000 other websites, via the IDX feed. So what I recommend to agents is when you're out and about, I'll share you some examples of Jessica, take native photos on your phone. Photos on your phone are metadata rich. Professional photos often get scrubbed of the metadata because it's not important, right? The quality of the photo is important. But what your phone does is it embeds where the photo was taken, who took it, when it was taken, right? So Google knows this is a recent photo. She took it in Horseshoe. Kimmy took it because it was taken on her iPhone. So it just gives your photo like insane credibility through the metadata. So using your phone, using unique photos. So if you have a listing on photo day, bring your cell phone. I know real estate taboo. We're going to take cell phone pictures. You want to take like 30 photos because every single time you post, I want it to be a different photo and a unique photo. So that's why the Google Maps app is really easy. I'll show you how to put them in the Google Maps app to post them. But that's why it's so important to take photos on your phone. Jessica's genius. She puts her face in a lot of them, right? Because again, if it's showing up in search results, she wants to be associated with them. So, right, this is when you want to share your closing day and your under contracts. And then she does this thing where she watermarks. If you see in the very bottom left corner, she basically puts a logo that just says Jessica Wade Realtor. And she uses that in all of her posts, including other business reviews, right? Because it's kind of this subliminal messaging. And she said, one of the clients who found her on Google said this was kind of it. They said, we just Googled realtor and kind of like poked around and your face just kept showing up, right? So it's getting your name and face out there and making sure people know who you are and what you do. And I'll also show you how to do the watermark in just a second. So again, these are the types of posts you can refer back to of some examples, especially if you have listings, you guys. Sharing your listings often. That's why I say at your listing, take 30 generic photos because, what's average days on market right now? I think it's 50 something, 60 something. Plenty of opportunity to once a week share your listing but making sure you have unique photos of it. So here's what it looks like. So again, this is what it looks like if you pull up on your Google Maps app. So on the far left, you pull up, this is Google Maps app. In the bottom right hand corner, you see a little business storefront looking thing. And then that shows you. So then you can click this more button right here and it expands your options. So right here where it says add update, those are what I'm referring to as a post. So those pictures that Jessica added, she just added one singular picture here, and then she wrote her post, and then she hit publish. Do not regurgitate social media posts. Make sure these are just unique photos, right? They can be short and sweet. And here I am at this listing. It's a very different audience than social media posts. You can use videos here too, and Jessica does use videos. So again, making sure you are updating your profile, that you have all the things filled out, that you have your appropriate hours and your photos, and you can even add events. So if you've got like an open house, you can put it on there. But these updates is what you want to update mostly. Like I said, one to two times a week would be great. And then, so here's a couple of the little tricks. So I called it a watermark, but essentially it's a photo on top of a photo. So I do mine in Canva. It's a little labor intensive. I had another agent share that she used a free app called Easy Watermark. So you just save your logo, and your logo can just be your name and realtor. It doesn't have to be like an actual produced logo, but we just have one. So I put it in Canva, and then you click this thing called BG Remover, which stands for background remover. And then I kind of just paste it in the corner, right? So making sure every photo has our logo on it, so people were associated with the photo. And then another to do was to show you the QR code generator. I do mine in Canva, so I can actually toggle back. So this is my slideshow. Here on the far left, I have the app QR code. So I can click that and tell it where I want it to go, which you actually would want to paste your Google link in there, and then I can move this around. So again, that's how I'm going to get it on business cards and different things. But again, this slide will be there if you need to refer back to how to create QR codes in Canva. There's plenty of free QR code generators out there. So, but I prefer the Canva one because I'm making all my collateral in Canva anyways. And that's it. So I'm going to wrap it up officially for the recording, but if you're actually on here live, I'll stick on and have some questions. So hopefully you're here because you're planning to attend the finale. So I have two in March. So this is the Asheville one, March 18th, and then I'll be in Hendersonville on March 24th. That one I do not intend to record it. It is a live session of how to do DIY Google ads. So again, you've got a whole month to prepare, making sure you go through session 1 and 2, like you just did, optimize your profile, get a handful of reviews. You cannot run ads the way I do without having at least a handful of reviews. So please sign up for the next session, contact us. You can reach me at this number, text, or if you call and Justine answers, just let her know that I mentioned from the Google class that you want to get in touch with me if you guys need any help. And again, before I come back to questions, I would be remiss if I didn't actually ask for your business. Again, I love teaching about Google, and I hope it earns you business. And then when you earn that business, we can work together and be a home inspection resource for you guys. So please, we would love to work with you. And thank you. I hope we see you in the next session. So I'm going to stop the recording somehow. Pause, stop recording, stop.